And we are live.
Okay. Howdy, howdy, and welcome to Atheist on Air Beyond the Trailer Park. It is Monday, October 26th, and we are minus our boss. So Ashley and I decided we were going to play today. So with us we have Brigid Fitch, who is from Holy Crap,
Indiana. Yeah,
vlog,
Holy Crap. Yeah.
and Miss Ashley. How are you guys?
I'm doing very well. Hey, y'all. How are y'all doing?
I'm
Good.
doing. Yeah, make sure I have all these little gadgets turned off.
Yeah.
And yes, this is the first time I get to run the show, so you'll have to deal with my talking myself through the processes here. So.
Oh, well, I think you're doing a fine job.
I got the audio to work, so that's the main thing.
Hey, if anything, it'll teach Deborah not to go on a sabbatical.
Yeah, and put me in charge. But so, how are you doing, Miss Ashley?
I'm doing great. Staying busy with the two boys. We got football and cross country, and I'm still in school. But I think I'm going to take a break after this class is over with, and I'm dealing with getting an unofficial promotion at work.
Woohoo!
So
Yes, promotions.
Oh,
Yes.
one last. I don't know if no, I haven't talked to y'all to tell y'all yet. So Bobby and I have decided to get married.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's about time you told us.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Cool.
We are actually going to do it October 1st of next year. So on top of raising kids, getting kids to where they need to go and work, I'm also planning a wedding and of course doing podcasting.
Fine.
And
they could be tired just hearing all that.
I was going to say time to sleep when?
What's that?
Exactly. Well, I can't say that because I'm back up to sleeping 16 hours a day lately. So.
Okay. So you're sleeping for me. Thanks. I appreciate that.
Yes. You're welcome. And Miss Brigid, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm not nearly as busy as Ashley is, which is good because she's wearing me out just hearing her go over all the stuff she's got going on. All I have to worry about is, 4 cats, 2 girls, and work. So I've got it pretty good.
Well, I could throw you some of my classes.
The 2 girls.
Yeah, but they're 18 now, so they can fend for themselves.
Oh, I wait for the days. I have a 9-year-old and I have a 15-year-old.
It comes quick.
Oh, you're halfway there.
Yeah, halfway.
Yeah. See, when I have, most people don't know, I have 2 stepsons, although I don't have much contact with them. It was nice because I came in when they were 14 and 16.
Oh, shoot. Most of the work was already done.
Yeah, it was all done. But I could always tell when my one stepson, when he wanted something really, really bad, and he knew his mom would not go for it, he would come to me first. And I'm like, you do realize I'm more of a bitch than your mother. But well, that's my dealing with kids. I have a boatload of nieces and nephews, but I can give them back.
I know, that's what I told Bobby. I'm looking forward to grandkids because I can spoil them and then send them home.
Well, it's like the picture I posted the other day, and I usually don't post a lot of family pictures. So I had been talking to my dad on Thursday and forgetting that it would have been Mom and Dad's 60th.
Mm.
And my mom passed last November. And it didn't even dawn on me that it was their anniversary date. And so I'm thinking, oh, great. You know, when he brought it up, I'm like, oh, great. How the hell do I cheer up my dad on his
Oh.
first anniversary without my mom? So we
Mm-hmm.
got talking, and I don't have a lot of contact with my brother. We don't really talk to each other, but I do like to keep up on what the kids are doing, and I see them once every 7 years if I'm lucky. So my dad goes, yeah, your brother sent me a picture of your niece, and she is a theater arts, TV production major, somewhere in Virginia, and they're learning to do makeup. So my brother sends my dad this photo of my niece, her face all like, scratched up, like looks like a minor case of road rash. No explanation, no context, nothing. Sends it to Grandpa. Okay, he sees this picture of Dad, Grandpa's little girl. It freaks
Uh-oh.
out. Calls the house, and my brother wasn't there. And my sister-in-law answered, and she's like, he sent you that picture? Oh, that's nothing. That's just makeup.
I bet it freaked him out, though.
Oh, it did. And so he sends me the picture, and I'm like, damn, not bad for, I think she's a freshman. Maybe she's a sophomore. Oh well, first or second year student. I'm thinking that's not too bad for for a second year student. So I thought it was funny because my dad was just laughing about it. I'm like, oh good, I don't have to cheer him up. Yeah, those kind of kids I like when I can give them back or I can watch them from a distance. Yeah, that's more my style.
Yep.
But
Yeah, I get
so ladies, oh go ahead, Dash.
no, I get one. Let's see, my oldest comes and stays with me every other weekend and on every Monday and every Wednesday night. And it seems as though whenever he comes over, I've never seen a boy that can have so much laundry. 15. My goodness, he's sitting there tonight and he's like, "Oh, I forgot to pack socks. I forgot to bring socks with me." So what's he doing? In there doing laundry. He'll be back Wednesday.
Well, at least he's doing it.
Well, yeah, I was doing it until I realized that he was bringing it every time he came over.
Ah.
Wow. Sneaky.
Oh, I'll just bring it. Mama will do it.
Yeah, I used to do that when I was in college. My parents only lived an hour and a half from where I went to school. So every weekend, because I would go home for hockey, I load up my little duffel bag full of laundry and take it home. And the funny thing is, growing up, I did my own laundry.
Yeah. Me too.
But I would take it home and, here, Ma, I gotta go. See you, bye. That didn't last very long.
Now, see, if he goes off to college and then he comes back, which I mean, he's trying to decide now if he wants to join the Navy or not. But if he does end up going off to college or going to the Navy or whatever, and he comes home, I'm gonna want to spend time with him. I don't want him to spend his whole time doing his laundry, so I will do his laundry for him. But I'm not telling him.
Yeah. No, you just told the whole world that, though.
Yeah.
True. This is true, and he is starting to listen to podcasts now, so I probably shouldn't have said that.
Oh,
Yeah, you're probably busted.
Yes.
Speaking of podcasts, I found a whole bunch more to listen to.
You did?
Yeah, it was like top 10, yeah, top 15 nonfiction podcasts. It was a couple of them I already had listened to, but yeah, there's a couple interesting ones in that. I'm like, oh Lord, I'm not gonna have time to listen to. I mean, my iTunes, I have like 576 podcasts.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I think I have more than that.
Well, I dropped about 300 of them when my interests changed, but I mean, I don't have TV, so that's
Right.
entertainment is podcasts and YouTubes, but
Well, there's a lot of new podcasts that are coming out that are just starting, and I mean, which I think is great because I mean we need more voices out there.
Mm-hmm.
We've always got room for more voices, and if that's the way,
Especially women. Hint, hint.
exactly, yeah, and if that's their way of doing their activism is through podcasting, hey, I'm all for it. We've got a couple of people that are reaching out to us to No Religion Required, wanting to come on and promote their shows and stuff. So, I mean, I think it's great.
Yeah.
I just hope
Well,
that one day I have time to listen to them.
Yeah,
yeah. And
that's
that's
the
the thing.
thing.
Like I was talking with a friend today, and I mean, one of my goals before all the bullshit with my stroke and having to rearrange work and all that stuff is, I wanted to. I mean, I do like my segment, the Havoc and Chaos Live, is eventually I wanted to actually do like an hour presentation of Havoc and Chaos. Well, originally, when I started doing the segments, it was I was hitting different news stories, and that didn't work out so good because, like, I'm kind of a nerd, so I have a tendency to overcompensate with, finding everything I possibly can. And when you're like doing multiple news stories, that's really hard and time consuming. So then it was okay. I'll narrow it down to like maybe one, possibly two topics per segment, and then I'm like, I realized I was figuring it out the other day is that for one 15-minute segment or so, it's 100 hours of work. I'm
Yes.
like, yeah, I don't think I'll be doing this for an hour.
Well,
Mm,
there's so many news stories right now out there. I mean,
Mhm.
and with the elect, I mean, after
Yeah.
Thanksgiving and Christmas, the elections are just going to take off.
mm-hmm.
I mean, it's going to be that time.
Yeah.
And,
Well, with the news, I mean, and it's not just simple stories. I mean, there's just some crazy shit out.
Yeah.
yeah,
Let's ignore the politician, the election bullshit. Eliminate that. I mean, I've been updating all week stories that I wrote like last year,
yeah,
that I posted about, and it's like, um, it gets really hard to keep track of them all. I mean, I'm kind of lucky. Pretty much anything I see, I remember. So like, I know what when I go through my news stories. But I mean, like the congressman that rehomed his two kids, and then the one girl was raped. That's
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
that's back in the news.
mm,
Mm-hmm.
It's like the bullshit that went on in Indiana that we had AJ on for, that I interviewed her about that. I mean, that's heating up again because I don't remember off the top of my head, but they're fiddling with the RFRA. I mean, it's just like constant just bullshit. And then now you got the high schools coaches praying on the field when they've been told not to. I mean, now
Mm-hmm.
they're doing it just because they're getting the attention.
yep.
It's
We have
it's
that
nuts.
problem going on right now at our schools.
Mhm.
I mean, when you see the whole football team and cheerleaders and, coaches standing in a huddle and they all have their heads bowed and I mean, what else are they doing? They're not looking at
Yeah.
everybody's shoes.
Well, I saw a couple of weeks ago where somebody had run out on the field. I don't know if it was a cheerleader or football player with the Christian flag and just went, running
Yes.
across the field with it.
Oh, yeah. And we
And
were coming back from, I'd have to go look it up, but I think it was in Lake City, South Carolina. We were, when Hugh, Man, and I and Bobby were trying to swim ourselves out of Myrtle Beach. Um,
oh yeah.
we came across it's actually, it was very ironic to me because you go through these towns where these people are standing on the side of the road and their homes are literally submerged in water.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And here I am being a total bitch because I can't get home. We were already a day late getting home. I mean, it put everything in perspective for me. I'm like, you know what? Okay, I'm not going to bitch anymore about not being able to get home. And then you go to the next town that's completely dry, and all of a sudden, Human, who had a very badass Mustang, I must say, her pulls into this library, and he's like, I had to stop because there's a monument next to the library that had a Christian flag on it,
Mm.
and it was part of the library.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like, really. I mean, there's all these little towns that are getting away with this because nobody's standing up and saying anything.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. I had to
I'm
do something.
almost positive here where I live. It's probably going on, but because of, I'll put it bluntly, safety issues, I don't dare speak up.
Yeah.
Because it does not affect me per se because I have nothing to do with the school district or anything like that. But I can almost guarantee that shit's going on here. But as I said, I mean, I would be a voice of one, and I literally would get slaughtered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
And that's the thing in small towns like where I live. As far as I know, besides my former landlord,
mhm,
I'm the only atheist here. Oh, except for my one friend, but she doesn't live in town proper. She lives, she's in the same county, but she lives outside of town. And like me, she's pretty much a homebody, so I mean, she's vocal about it on Facebook, and she gets ramrodded just on Facebook for it.
yeah.
And
I mean, I wish
but
today that we can all just be who we want to be on Facebook, out in public. I mean, like right now, I cannot post certain things on my Facebook page because I do have my kids on it. I have people that can hurt me
Mm-hmm.
and hurt my kids. Bobby's very vocal with his activism. He'll call somebody out in a heartbeat. But as for me, I can't do that because I do have children that I have to look out for. And
right,
when they can when they turn 18 and they can stand on their own 2 feet and they're out of house and mommy's not having to take care of them anymore, then maybe I can become a little bit more vocal. But right now, podcasting is the only way that I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Well,
but
and the
you got to
thing about these
remember
schools
too.
is you can't really sue unless you have standing.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I know a lot of people, especially the theists, will kind of overgeneralize. They're like, well, FFRF, using them as doesn't have standing. It's like, well, no, they don't as a organization, but somebody in your community does.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. If you like, for me to complain because I don't have children in school, I don't have standing, so my complaint really would not mean anything. Now, if the library, which I happen to live right next door to, um, were to do something like that, then yes, I would have standing.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of people don't realize that these individuals in small towns that are coming forward really are putting their lives on the line.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
whether it be their home life, whether it be, I mean, there are a couple of reports that when people have spoken up, they have lost their jobs
Mm-hmm.
and basically got blackballed. I know one family actually had to move because the onslaught from the Christians was, you know, pretty intense, and
Mhm.
it just got to the point where they were like, we can't deal with this. I mean, they don't regret doing what they did. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, the recent case in PA, yes, uh, FFRF won, but in a sense they also lost because the student graduated out of school district. So they basically, it took like 3 years for the case to, but
Well, I had to call on them one time, and that was back in 2012. They had tried to pass the Lord's Prayer bill for the schools,
Oh wow.
and it had gone through the state house and the Senate, and it was sitting on the governor's desk, and he said he was going to sign it. And I was like, oh, no, you are not. And so I contacted FFRF and said, please leave my name out of it because I don't want somebody to burn my house down, but do something. And I don't know what they did, but it disappeared quietly.
actually, Katie just corrected me, and she is right. I didn't even think of this. I do have standing even with the school district because I pay taxes. So I forgot all about
Uh,
that.
Well, I had a student that was, in the schools, and so it wasn't any problem for them to take my case.
Yeah. But
Yeah. Well, it's just like here in Georgia. If I were to literally, I mean, now there is a church, step outside my door and there's a church. Deborah, if she was here and not on a sabbatical, she could vouch for it.
Yeah,
Um,
I believe you.
you step outside. If we were to like put like an atheist symbol out there on our back porch, even though I'm in an apartment building, somebody would literally try to burn down our apartment building.
oh
Or at
yeah,
least smash out your windows or something.
Yeah.
yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, and I can't put my children's lives at risk, and I can't, and I'm not gonna put Bobby's life at risk. I'm not gonna put my own life at risk.
I
And
Well,
understand that.
I'm thankful that I have a job to where I can be vocal.
Hmm.
But as for my personal life,
yeah. Well, and that's the stigma surrounding atheism.
Hmm.
We eat babies.
yeah, I mean, one
We,
day, do I think that we'll all be able to, walk around and say that we're atheists? Yeah, one day.
yeah.
But that day's not now.
Right, it's not right now. And you know
Well,
what? If we have to have fake names, then that's what we have to do.
Hmm.
But under our fake names, we are being vocal and we are being activist. And you know what? That's okay with me.
well, I know back on Atheist on Air, one of the earlier shows. I think it was one of the first few ones that I actually ever called into. Uh, a gentleman had called in. I'm going to say he was probably in his mid 20s, and he lived at the time. I don't know if he still is. Lived in Texas, and not only was he an atheist, but he was also gay. So he was, getting it from both angles, which I can relate to. And I don't know what it was at the time. I was still under. I used Sane Spirit for my primary account just because I wanted to keep shit with town and work and stuff separate because I was taking so much grief, primarily for being gay. And I sat there and listened to this guy's story, and it's like, basically he was being bullied and pushed around, and it was like, I think for me it was the straw that broke the camel's back because it's like, that's it, I'm done fucking hiding.
Hmm.
And luckily, I have a job that, one, if I lost it, it wouldn't be that big a deal per
Right.
se. And I make minimum wage. Whoopee! Um, but I also know my boss does know who I am and what I stand for and what I do outside of work. I mean, I talk to her about it all the time. So that wasn't an issue for me anymore. Now, my job prior to that, yes, it was, and it was an issue. So I'm sorry, but for people, whether they're gay, whether they're atheist or Buddhist or Muslim or whatnot, it should not matter. And I think it was I can't remember which late show. Uh, Bernie Sanders was on, and he was asked about his religion, and he basically said it's really none of your fucking business. We're all human. That's what is important.
Yeah,
And
I saw him on Bill Maher. That was pretty cool.
yeah, so it's just yeah. Hopefully one day, and I think it's coming because the right is getting very desperate, and they're doing some really stupid things to get attention, and it's going to backfire. I mean, they think they have precedence with these praying on the football fields and all that, and no, they don't. And just throwing the spaghetti on the wall, hoping it's going to stick, it's not going to work.
No,
Most
it's not.
definitely.
And the best thing that they can do is just keep religion out of school, period. It doesn't belong in school. They need to teach my kids. Let me teach my kids about religion, teach them math, teach them language arts, teach them, hell, by all means, please teach them science.
Hmm.
Yes, please, please. Yeah, some of the anti-vax shit I've been dealing with this week has been pretty wild. Like, wow.
Well, the thing that really floored me is when the Texas Republicans, had their official party platform that said that they were against critical thinking and higher ordered thinking skills. because it would, corrupt the kids.
Yep. Yeah, that was their 2012 platform, which I would
Hmm.
not be surprised if they say the same thing this year.
Oh, they probably will, but that just floored me. I was like, what?
Yeah. What about the parents that got like what 2 years for waiting on Jesus to cure their children?
Hmm.
Which case?
Okay, excuse me. The most recent one.
Yeah.
Which one?
Which
All right.
state? It's so common
The
nowadays.
Oregon one.
Let's see.
Uh,
Where were they? What was it? Were they in? I don't think they were in Oregon.
Yeah, the most recent one that just got adjudicated was in Oregon, and yes, you're right. They waited. Yeah, their case. I think the child died in 2013,
Hmm.
but it was a newborn, and I think it was 9 days old.
Hmm.
What kills me is they're so against going to quote doctors, but yet Mama Killer had glasses.
What? Really?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Wow.
So against getting medical care for your child, but yet you're wearing fucking glasses. Okay. Now
That.
maybe she got the glasses prior to her conversion, but it's a
Wow.
little bit hypocritical. Yeah.
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 And that's how they think.
Wow. In other words, I need glasses so that I can help me see the bullshit that I'm reading. Oh,
Awesome.
that's just crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's just, I don't know how. I really don't. And we had a situation here. I mean, I really don't know if it had anything to do with religion or not. But it was probably about 3 weeks ago. There was a mother who had children that was like one was like a little over a year old and one was a couple of months old. She held her babies down in the bathtub and drowned them.
Oh God, another
Yeah.
infuriates.
And then picked up the phone and called the police and said, I just killed my children. And I'm sitting here, I mean, I just could not imagine holding any of my kids down and drowning them. And maybe this is a segue into, what our
Yeah,
topic is going to be about tonight.
you just nailed it right on the head. And this is one of the issues I have, and I mean, I'm very open about the fact I do have bipolar disorder. I was diagnosed in 1996, 97-ish. Prior to that, I had issues with just depression, but you have to remember back in the 80s, bipolar was not that well understood.
Right.
I also have PT. I don't consider I have PTSD now, but I was suffering from PTSD. But basically, I have what's called bipolar type 2, and I have a adjunct diagnosis of with psychotic features. In other words, if I get too manic, I try to test the theory of gravity. Now, in my worst state of mind, hurting another individual never even vaguely, okay, crossed my mind. Now, when I was on Prozac back in the 80s, okay, that's a different story. But
You're not helping my case
that,
here, Beth.
what I'm saying is, like, there's been some recent cases where they've brought up after the fact, after the incident, whatever the crime was, oh, well, they're suffering from a mental illness, which I don't doubt. I'm sorry, to do like what Andrew Yates did or the case you're talking about now. Something's definitely not right upstairs. My problem is, and I still struggle with this, and I do debate people off and on about it, is the religious ideology causing them to react like the Maryland case where the two women tried to exorcise their children and
Mhm.
ended up killing them. Well,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. I mean, basically, they see demons everywhere. Is that causing them to act this way, or is having the illness causing them to react on the religious ideology? So it's kind of like, what's causing what? I mean, because it's got to come from somewhere where, oh,
I think they feed off of each other, if I think about it, because I know when I was growing up, burning albums and books and things like that was a thing because they were demon possessed. But my family put the fun in the mental and fundamental. So it could be that they have been taught to, worry about demons trying to steal their soul, and then they end up with a mental issue, and it just forms a vicious circle.
Right. Now, do me a favor, because I know very little about bipolar. Here's about what I know about bipolar, okay? When somebody, say, that I know is very calm, has been calm, and then all of a sudden they just flip a switch and become totally different. Okay, I've been told that's bipolar. So,
it
do me a
can
favor.
be that's a very very I'll say simplistic and not in a negative sense. That's a very simple way of looking at it. Basically, it used to be called manic depression. In other
Okay.
words, a person at one point will exhibit signs of mania. Now, the problem with that is mania is not all happy-go-lucky, I want to fuck everything that moves, I want to spend every penny I own, and then regret it 5 days later. Um, it's not always lack of sleep. Mania can be different things. Like, I have what is called agitated mania. In
Mhm.
other words, I'm a nasty fucking bitch.
I think now they call that mixed, don't they?
What?
I said now don't they call that mixed bipolar?
Well, there's a mixed state, which is you get the mania mixed with the depression. You have both the mania and depression at the same time.
But I thought that ended up, causing like agitation and anger
Well,
issues.
it can, but there is actually an agitated mania where, like, I get very hyper. You can tell if you listen to some of our past episodes. There's days where I'm very quiet. I don't say a whole lot, and then there's days like I won't shut the fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
It's what they call forced speech. In other words, any gap, like, any moment of silence, I feel like I have to fill that gap in.
Mhm.
So it's that forced speech pattern, and you can actually, like, when I go back and listen to some of the shows, I'm like, yeah, but I was manic,
Mm-hmm.
but there delineating between these different states can be really difficult, especially for a layperson. I mean, like, for me, when I was first diagnosed, it was because I'm the type of person that I have to know everything or everything that I can possibly know and grasp myself without having to go to med school to do it.
Yeah, we can
Um,
tell that from your blogs.
yeah, I can be a little over redundant with the links. That's actually part of my bipolar. But I learned as much as I possibly could about bipolar because, I mean, my last therapist I had, basically, I hadn't even sat down in the chair yet. I hadn't even really met her other than in group. And the first question she asked me is, do you want to sink or swim?
Mhm.
Basically, do you want to beat this shit or do you want to overtake your life? So I learned, but for some people that doesn't work. They have to literally be, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, handheld through the whole thing. Me, I'm the type that, okay, that I want to learn everything I know can about that. I mean, I've done it with Quiverful, and especially with stuff with the Reich and any, well, primarily LGBT issues, especially the whole homosexuality and the Bible bullshit. But dealing with the mental illness, I was on medication. The medication was literally killing me. I didn't like how I felt on it. So I learned, but some people just can't do that. And it's just like, and it's funny because I know during this time is when I was dumping religion. It was and the funny thing is, as soon as I dumped religion, my bipolar wasn't so bad.
It's
Because
amazing how that works, isn't it?
Well, I had the opposite experience. So when I'm manic, I have a tendency to buy into, the end times eschatology and all that shit. And that's one thing. That's one way I can tell that I'm about to hit a manic period.
yeah. I mean, it's funny because bipolar. I know for a while before the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic Statistic Manual that the shrinks use to diagnose you. At one point, before the new version, which is version 5, came out, they were actually talking about adding a third category of bipolar, and that would basically be uh, kind of like the whole mixed state thing. But I don't think they don't know whatever happened with it. It kind of just like disappeared. But there there's nuances within. I mean, you could be a rapid cycler, which means your moods could shift on a dime, literally. I mean, there would be times where I could actually feel myself cycling between depression and mania while I was sleeping,
Mhm.
Wow.
and it would happen so fast. One minute I'd be fine, and the next I'd be a slobbering idiot, and 5 minutes later I'd be angrier than shit. And basically it was all the chemical thingies going off in my brain. They just, yeah. I mean, my meltdown. I mean, if you've ever seen a circuit board overload, all the sparks arcing. That's what my brain does.
Yeah,
I don't know what my brain does now, but
uh, I don't
listen to
have
this.
them as often as I used to. I mean, I had them a lot when I was with my ex, but I would be like perfectly fine and calm, and then there'd be like just one thing, just one little thing that would trigger me, and I would literally just go off. I mean, I could be, happy go lucky, and then just like I said, just one little thing would trigger me, and then I'd be a raving bitch, is what I would be.
Yeah. Well, and for us as women, our hormones do play a role in it. And
Mhm.
there, as I said, there's some minutiae involved in all these type of diagnoses. Is that there's what some people will call situational.
Yeah. Something
Which
happens.
I'll use like depression as an example. There's situational depression. In other words, something in your life, i.e., the death of a parent or the death of a spouse or a child, a serious car accident. Those are situational things. Yes, you're gonna get depressed after them. In my case, right now, I'm dealing with the after effects of the stroke, and
Mhm.
I am the last couple of weeks. I have been really, really struggling with what they call post-stroke depression, and I'm not quite sure how well I'm dealing with it because I've been sleeping so much because I'm also bipolar. So is it possible I'm cycling, down into a depression, or is it just, so there's some things that for me are making it a little bit goofy, and I'm just doing my best to roll with the punches. But then
Right.
there's also depression that's caused by a chemical imbalance, or what they think is a chemical imbalance, because now there's some controversy surrounding it, where your brain just is not making the connections it should be. And that's something that, usually has to be treated long term, where situational is usually, you know, a period of grief, we'll say 6 months.
Mhm.
And after 6 months, you slowly start to improve on your own. You might get medication to supplement it. You may not. You might go through some therapy if it's a family situation like a divorce. Those things are, quote, easily solved, and I use that very loosely. Whereas when you have something that's a physiologically based, that's where you know trying to determine between the two. And that's why when you go to talk to a therapist or a psychologist or psychiatrist, that's why they ask you all those mundane questions. You know,
Right.
did your parents have it? Did your aunt or uncles, your brother, your sister? You know, when I was first, when I was first diagnosed, I went, I don't know how many times I answered the same question, like 300 times. I was like, do I really have to rehash this?
Mhm.
Well, I got it from both sides of my family. My dad had it. He's deceased now, and one of my mom's sisters had it, but she had type 1. So I kind of got a double whammy there. And 70% of it, is inherited. So, I had that against me, anyway. And the first time I ever got depressed, I was 7. And nothing had happened to me, but I was suicidal when I was 7.
Wow.
And from what family members tell me, even as a baby, I wasn't a happy baby. I was just, and I didn't really get diagnosed properly till about 6 years ago. And then I was diagnosed with bipolar. And I
Well,
take 3 different medications now. One of them's a mood stabilizer, and I take a couple of other things for depression and mania. So,
and that's what makes it hard with not just with bipolar, but with any mental illness per se. Is that diagnosis is not like you go in, have an MRI. Oh, you've had a stroke, and that's it. It's like my diagnosis actually took almost 3.5 years
Mhm.
from
yeah,
my
mine
first
took about 20.
diagnosis.
So,
And see, and on with both sides of my family, my mom and my dad. I mean, I really wouldn't know if they suffered from any type of bipolar or any type of mental illness because we just didn't talk about that.
yeah,
You know?
but it's pretty obvious, though. My dad would be awake for a week at a time, bouncing off the walls and going, it was real obvious. And then he'd crash and could not get out of bed, couldn't do anything.
Mhm.
So there was no hiding it.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that was a big, huge ordeal in my family was alcoholism.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
we had that
see,
too.
even with alcohol and drug use, in my case, and I am a recovered alcoholic, and I'm also a recovered drug addict. My drug of choice was painkillers. I really enjoyed my OxyContin.
I can
Uh,
understand.
and it was because I was basically self-medicating.
Mhm.
We're pretty sure that I've had bipolar my entire life. Um, we can at least trace it back till I was about 10 years old. That's when I started cutting. And yes, I do cut. I haven't cut in a while, but it's still there, and I still fight it every day. But with the right questions, with the right therapy, for lack of a better word, that's what they try to dig out, and it's so frustrating because the point you made is it wasn't talked about in my family,
Mhm.
and I went through the same thing. Mental illness in my family does not exist.
Right.
It's a quote spiritual problem,
Yes.
and
Oh, yeah.
even in, we'll say, more liberal households as far as their religious beliefs, it still goes back to original sin.
Yeah.
Like, it's it's you that are the flawed person,
Mhm.
and that's one of the biggest stigmas with dealing with mental illness, and it ties over even into atheism, and it ties over into LGBT. I mean, something is wrong with you.
Right.
And that I think, all three, and I think in a way that's why all three are so interconnected.
hmm I know my dad's case, when they put him on lithium, it did help him, but my mom was like, "You're weak. You don't need to be taking that stuff, and there's nothing wrong with
Mhm.
you." And he would feel shame and flush his meds down the toilet.
Mhm.
And
So it just wasn't accepted. My family, it wasn't allowed. And then my one of my mom's sisters ended up on a psych ward, so it's pretty obvious something was up.
Yeah.
well, I think too. I mean, especially with the new Star Wars, I almost said Star Trek movie coming out, for me, is one of the biggest way to remove the stigma, or try to remove the stigma, or at least make people aware that, hey, we're normal. Take a look at Carrie Fisher.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I say this in jest. She's crazier than I am. Actually, she's not. I think we're about the same. But there's someone who is highly successful, who has publicly struggled with bipolar, but
Mhm.
yet look at where she is today.
Yep.
I mean,
The thing is it's not bipolar or any type of mental
yeah.
illness. It's not it's not because of who you are. It's not
Mhm.
it has nothing. I don't know per se if it has anything to do with how maybe what you were raised in or how you were raised or anything, because I've met some people that had pretty good child
Mhm.
livehoods who
Mhm.
are really ill right now, and
Yeah.
they feel like they don't need to go get help because of the fact that they were raised with the religion of,
Mhm.
it's because they think that their mental illness is because they've done something in their past. They're
Mhm.
the mark of the devil or whatever. The devil's taken them over.
Yeah.
Well,
I had problems
I
with PTSD, and that was induced by religious stuff,
Right.
which
well,
didn't help.
I think one of the points you had brought up when we were trying to decide what to talk about tonight was how can people help? Well, one of the biggest things, I mean, from my perspective, especially with going through what I am now, is remind people that no, you didn't do something wrong. It's
Right.
not it's not self created. I mean, this is just the way your brain happens to be working at the moment.
Right.
And a lot of, as much as I hate this saying, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, in a sense that's what you want to encourage, but not saying, buck up, but basically you want to support somebody in, getting away from, oh, I've done something wrong, or oh, this is God's punishment, or you know I'm a bad person. It's just, no, just like, I say this to Deb all the time. I mean, I talk to her quite a bit, and she's been probably the biggest support for me as far as dealing with my stroke. She, a couple times she'll say, "Well, I wish there was more I could do," and I've said this to you too, Ashley. Just being my friend and
Mhm.
letting me rant and rave, and that helps more than anything else. I mean, even though right now I'm dealing primarily with my stroke, but even, there's times when I've talked to Deb, and she could tell just by how I was talking that I was in one of my down points.
Yeah,
And
Deb has a
it's
way of
just,
doing that.
yeah, she's good like that. It might have something to do with she was
She
associated
and
with
I
it.
can honestly go a couple of days without talking, and she'll just message me out of the blue and go, "What's wrong?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "How the hell did you do
How
that?"
did you know? Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, a lot of people, in fact, I have people here that kind of knock that I spend a lot of time on the internet. Well, first off, I don't have TV. I have a prepaid cell phone that actually has no minutes on it at the moment. I really have nothing to do with people in the town I live with because they drive me absolutely fucking nuts. So the internet for me is my social media.
Right.
And when I was running my GoFundMe page, the those people were the ones that are responsible for me still having a roof over my head.
Mhm.
People in my real life, no. So yeah, no, and with Deb knowing, oh, hey, what's going on.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you can actually get to know people that well
Yeah.
through Facebook or whatever.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, that's one of the things that we actually were talking about on our show, a couple of weeks ago. We had Paleo Radio on, and he had never heard the statement, your chosen family. And
Mhm.
he was completely, it literally almost brought tears to his eyes to hear that. And the thing about, oh, look at the kitty behind you. Sorry,
It's
that
Pico.
um but I have gotten more support from people that I have met on social media
Mhm.
than I have from my actual own family, that my
Me
birth
too.
family. Now my dad, he's coming around. My dad has actually been there a lot for me this year, and we've my dad's walking me down the aisle. Never did I ever, ever, ever think that was going to happen. you know but it is just the family that we have chose to attach ourselves to
Mhm.
through social media are freaking awesome. and
Mhm.
Mhm.
and it never fails. You can message somebody at 2-3 o'clock in the morning and say, hey, I just need somebody to talk to, and they're there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that myself.
And it's awesome.
And yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, it's like when you want to help or you try to help, just be yourself. Plain
Yeah,
and simple.
yeah.
I mean, and I find that funny because like some people are like, I know that they literally want to physically come and help, but in my, yeah, I'm 5 hours from nowhere,
Yeah.
so it's not really possible. And it's funny because I've actually, well, you primarily, right after I had my stroke, was like, if you lived closer, I would take you because part of my problem here is that actual a support network I don't have. I mean, people I thought I could count on, I couldn't.
They
But
disappeared
it's
all of
funny
a
that,
sudden.
yeah, it's like, oh, okay, well, all
It's
right,
like the
you know.
rapture came.
Damn it, I got left behind.
Well, it's true. When you think that people who live around you are always like, "Oh, if you ever need anything, just call me," and then when you need something, it's the rapture. They're nowhere to be found.
Yeah, the ones that stick around, that's how you can tell that they're really a friend.
Yeah, and
Well, it's like I've had friends on, I'll also just say social media in general, going on 20 years
mhm,
Wow.
since 1990. Since I came online, and it was like midway through 1990, and I still have friends that I talk to from 1990, and these are and it's funny because it's like we can go, like you said, a couple weeks. I mean, I have people here that have no freaking clue what's going on.
right,
No, but I think within the atheist community, it's, I won't say it's harder, but I think in some ways it's harder to get proper care, if that
yeah,
makes sense.
it does,
Um, because like, although I have never had a therapist come at it from a, I'll say, Christian perspective, but I do know there are Christian counselors out there. I went to
Mhm.
one in college, and their whole idea of mental illness is really work. Not all of them, but there are some that they will not get off the Bible juju.
right. And they want to
It's
pray.
like,
They want to try to pray your mental illness away.
I mean, basically we saw that just last week with the
Right.
two boys that were, one beaten to death and the other one beaten to within an inch of his life, all over wanting to leave the church.
Yeah. And that's
Um,
sad. And I've had people ask me, when you have friends that have a mental illness and you see that they're going through a hard time, what can you say to them to make them feel better? And one of the things that I always say is, well, if you really know the person, be yourself.
yeah. Well, I think too, taking that a step further is, it's not so much what you say, It's what you do.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
An example I can give, one of my biggest issues is when I'm having issues, doing simple things like washing my dishes, taking care of my apartment.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first sign. Usually when I realize that I'm depressed, because I will have a week's worth of dishes piled in my sink. I'm like, oh shit, and then I'm like, and then usually I realize it when I'm coming out. I'm like, oh, I guess I was depressed.
Beth, I'm going to tell you something.
Mhm.
I don't have battles of depression, but there might go a week where there still might be dirty dishes in my sink, so they can wait until you feel better.
Well, one of
Yeah,
my signs is when it's just too hard to even go take a shower and I'm in the same
yes,
pajamas I've been wearing for 3 days.
yes.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. When I was first diagnosed, I mean, I was basically in the hospital 18 months out of the first 3 years, and it was 9 months of inpatient, and then I did another 9 months of various outpatients at various points. And one of the uh, worst hard times was right initially in the beginning. They literally had to reteach me how to take care of myself. They call them activities of daily living skills,
Mm-hmm.
and basically it's personal hygiene, taking a shower or bath, brushing your teeth, cooking. And I'm a chef by training. I do that for a living.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
taking care of your apartment, taking care of your bills. You know, I now actually have it set up where the only bill I have to worry about is my rent. Everything else is included in that because I suck with money. Like,
Well,
yes, that is one aspect of bipolar that I'm really good with. That's why I have no credit card
what really
or
upset
checking
me
account.
is when I first started having problems with depression before, I started having the mania. Um, I had one aunt tell me, well, just look on the bright side, snap out of it. And it's not like that. You wouldn't tell a diabetic to just get over it. And it's an
No, that
illness like
doesn't
that.
work.
Or if you
Well,
break
and
the leg, just buck it up. It doesn't work that way.
I mean, in some ways, yes, it is true, but you can't say it and not support it.
Well, if I could flip a switch, honey, I would. Trust
No,
me.
I'm saying, if I were to tell you to buck it up, well, that's not
Mhm.
going to do you any good if I don't help you.
Right.
So, and that's the thing. I mean, for me, people say, well, I wish, and I'll use Deb as an example, is, I wish I could do more. Well, you know, if you were my quote neighbor, make me a meal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or,
Or help me do laundry or something.
yeah, exactly. I mean, people try, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but it's the simple things that
Hmm.
actually will be of more help than to try to be over extravagant. You know, send them a little teddy bear. Deb sent me a care package a couple weeks ago, and inside of it was a little stuffed kitty, which
Oh.
was before. But I had a friend a couple years ago send me a sock monkey, just out of the blue, no explanation. I open the box and there's the sock monkey.
Wow.
That's it's the simple things. Yeah, I mean, if you know the person's suicidal, just nonchalantly, well, check on them, give
Hmm.
them a call. No, it's just I just wish that that's why there's a organization, Glenn Close, the actress, uh, Change Two is her organization. Her sister is severely paranoid schizophrenic, and I think she's bipolar too.
Hmm.
And or she's bipolar, and the nephew is schizophrenic. I can't remember offhand which, but I mean, one of the biggest issues for her is getting people to understand that there's really nothing wrong with these people. I mean, if they take their medication, they're fine. But I'm more familiar with bipolar, obviously, but um, it's when we get to the point where we're fine and throw our medication out. It's It
It's
just,
always a disaster.
yeah. And just for the record, I have been off medication since 2001, and
I
I did not throw
can't.
my I did not throw my medication out the window or anything like that. But it was literally killing me. It pretty much destroyed my liver, and that is why I'm diabetic. It,
Mm,
but and it was not an easy decision because it's not easy being hypermanic 99.9% of the time.
yeah.
Not something I recommend doing without a doctor's approval. And I did have my doctor's approval. But I also do know my signs and symptoms. I know what to watch for. I'm a weird person that when I get manic, I actually get a burning sensation, like right here in my head. And if you were actually to put your hand in my head, you could feel the heat. Now, since my stroke, I don't know if that still works or not, so I'm going to have to kind of watch. But learning what you can about the illness that your friend or your spouse or your child has is really important.
Hmm.
And I know, like, one of the first books I read was called Unquiet Mind by A.K. Jameson
I
Redfield.
read that.
Uh,
Awesome book.
yes. And I will point blank say that book saved my ass, literally. Um, because she has bipolar. She is one of the leading experts on bipolar. I think at the time she was just finished up her PhD, and here's somebody who is as nutty as I am, who went on got her doctorate's a leading expert in bipolar, but everything she described, I was like, oh, that's me. So yeah, but yeah, learning about the illness, like Ashley, in your case, is just you're just dealing with depression and anxiety, right?
Yes.
So what do you find, like, when okay, I know anxiety is really misunderstood. What's the
Hmm.
biggest thing for you, like, dealing with the anxiety and how people react to it?
Well, one of the things that you mentioned before was situational.
Mhm.
Okay. My anxiety comes from example. I'm responsible of making sure that 25 drivers have loads to deliver the next day. Okay. So at a certain time during the day, if I have a couple of drivers without any loads, I start freaking out. I mean, like, literally. I mean, I start twisting my hair. Um, I, I start dropping f bombs left and right, and I just really start freaking out. And I have literally been told by people, "Are you PMSing?" I'm like, "No, I'm fucking worried if a driver's gonna have a load or not," you know, and in cases like when it's birthdays coming up, and okay, oh my God, am I gonna be able to get this birthday done? Or like right now, Thanksgiving and Christmas is coming up. Am I gonna be able to get it done? I mean, I know it all sounds like it's like what normal people go through. Um,
Mhm.
you know, people freak out about their bills getting paid, but it's like mine escalates to a level of, I'm like, okay, I know everybody goes through this, but why? And my heart starts beating really fast,
Hmm.
and I start shaking, and but it only happens when certain things are, you know, it just when certain things are about to happen. There were times when in the last, I don't know, right before my birthday, I think it was what, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, something like that. Um, I was not sleeping. I was awake till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and
Yeah.
then I have to turn around and get up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Uh,
Yeah. So I'd walk into work looking like a zombie and think, oh, well, maybe I'll sleep tonight because I knew I only got a couple hours of sleep the night before. And I'm really tired, yawning, can't hardly stay awake, watching TV, go get in the bed wide awake.
Hmm. Yep.
And it is literally driving me crazy because I cannot function like that. And then what do? I go into work and I bite everybody's heads off for no apparent reason.
Yeah. I mean, I have sleeping medication that the doctor gave me for that, and that helps.
Well,
I take Ambien. I love it.
I had thought about, I was waiting because I have to go back. They want me to be on the Prozac for 6 weeks.
hmm
And then go back and see what if it's helping me, or how do I feel. And I honestly think that with the Prozac, I take the Prozac in the morning, not at night.
Yeah.
um but I don't know if maybe that might be causing me not being able to sleep at night.
It can.
Okay.
hmm
And
You can you can ask your doctor and try switching it to, instead of taking it in the morning, taking it just before you go to bed.
Right before you go to bed.
mm,
And try melatonin too. That sometimes helps.
okay. And
I
that
usually take like a 10 milligram melatonin 30 minutes before I want to go to bed, and then I take half an Ambien.
okay.
That works. And I wake up and I'm not groggy. I mean, I feel good when I get up.
I did have, during my years with my ex, one of my managers actually gave me an Ambien at work.
Oh, yeah, I can't.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and everything was so funny. I mean, I'd make a mistake and I'd just start laughing about it. And yeah, I went home and crashed after that. But
hmm
when I was on Ambien, that was like the best feeling that I could possibly have had while I was on that. I mean, it was like I'd look at people and just smile at them really, really big, and you would think that I just went out and smoked a big old joint. Um,
It gives me amnesia. Get on Facebook and I'm like, what the hell did I write last night?
Let me give it to you this. The first and only time I took Ambien, they found me on the front lawn of my apartment, naked,
Oh, wow.
sleeping, in the middle of winter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
wow.
scary.
Yeah, that was I think it was the first night I took it. I'm like, I'm not taking that again. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
and that's
scary.
the thing. One of the things with medication, and you bring up a good thing, because we've all taken the same medication, and we've all three had different reactions. And a lot of people, I know one of the biggest misconceptions is that, oh, take your happy pills and it'll be all better. And that's not always the case. It took them probably, it was 3 years till I got the quote proper diagnosis, even though we suspected it within the year. But it probably took to the end of 3 years to actually find a med combo that actually worked for me.
hmm
And I know people that they're 20 years down the road and they still don't have the right medications. And what they have, they call it medical, medical prescription. I can't think of the word. Damn it. Uh, Resistance.
Mhm.
hmm
Medication resistance. They just have a form. The medication just is not working for them.
Mhm.
And I jokingly say, "Oh, I gotta go take," well, I said it when I was still taking my pain pills. "Oh, I gotta go take my happy pill."
Yeah.
And I wish for everybody that it was that simple, that like, you take a pain pill, you get quote instant relief.
hmm
And regretfully, whether it's depression, anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia, anyway, I wish it was that easy for just popping a pill and you'd be all better.
Right.
But
Yeah, it's just like what Katie just said, and she said, I had I had the sleeping issue for years. I would literally drink myself to sleep. As soon as she wrote that, I automatically thought of my mother. My
hmm
mother gets off
Mhm.
work at 5 o'clock, and she's home by 5:05. By 5:07,
She's lit.
yes, I mean literally. And she is. You do not call my mama after 7 o'clock because she's in bed. She literally drinks herself to sleep.
mm
And that she has done that for as long as I can remember. And I'm, 38 years old. She did this from the time that I mean, I can remember her doing this at 14 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's because now I guess she's done it for so long. She's an addict. You know, she's got to have it. It's what puts her to sleep.
Well, and that's why, the whole idea of self-medication can be so, are you addicted? Are you, an alcoholic or a drug addict? Or has it become such a habit that that's your medication?
Right.
You know, I mean, for me, I know my drinking was to cope with, an incident. And, that happened at 13. I was raped. And by 15, I was an alcoholic.
Mm.
And I mean, I used my drink of choice back then was screwdrivers, vodka, and orange juice. And where most people would make the orange juice with 3 cans of water, I would make it with 3 cans of vodka and then add 3 more cans of vodka. And I would take this to school with me. I got
Wow.
away with it till my quote senior year, when a friend of mine asked for a drink, and I wouldn't give it to her. She took it anyways, and oh yeah, I got busted
Oh.
big time. But to me, that's how I coped. That's the only way I could cope with, what had happened, because it was like, oh, I must have done, I must have done something wrong to deserve that attitude. And people that struggle with, drug abuse that have mental is the same thing. I mean, I discovered it started out as coding in college, and by the time I graduated, my great aunt had bone cancer end stage, and she was prescribed OxyContin, which was actually what OxyContin was initially designed for, was for end stage bone cancer.
Mm.
And I started coughing her OxyContin. And boy, I really enjoyed it for a while. But but that's how I coped.
Yeah.
It's just like, and the sad thing is, I see kids here, they're getting freaking hooked on fucking heroin.
Yeah.
Wow. Just can't
And
imagine.
instead of, yeah, I mean, instead of dealing with the issue, they're poo-pooing it away.
Yeah.
I have one, I'll just say friend, who whose son is difficult. I'll use that word. But instead of getting and finding out if there's a underlying issue, doesn't exist. The kid is now 16, has spent the last 3 years in and out of juvie. Juvie has him diagnosed with operational defiant disorder. Whether you agree or not, if that exists, that remains to be seen. So there is an underlying issue, but mommy and daddy are like, eh. And it's like, seriously, okay, your kid needs help. It's like, to them, it doesn't exist. I'll give you one reason why.
Yeah.
They're Catholic. They're
Wow.
actually charismatic Catholic, which is even weirder.
What is a charismatic Catholic? I know what charismatic is. I know what Catholic is. What is that?
Combine the two, and you got it. Yeah, as I said, I live in Pennsylvania. Go with it.
Wow.
Wow.
That's a mind trip. It really is when I think about it.
Well, you know, one of the things y'all talked about or mentioned earlier, and the reason why I bring these up is because I don't know much about it. And I know there's a lot of people out there that don't know much about it.
Mm-hmm.
But y'all brought up the subject of PTSD. I have
Mm-hmm.
a lot of friends that suffer from it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my understanding that there's really not much help out there to cope with PTSD.
There's really not. I mean, I've been in talk therapy for decades, and I tell you, I keep on me just in case of emergencies. But, I do sometimes get triggered, and I've asked my therapist, when am I going to get past that? And he said, you may never.
Right.
Sometimes exposure therapy will help people, and I'm trying to do that on my own without his guidance. Some people saw me flip out when I went to Hickory, which was interesting. But it's just something I've had to live with, since I was 19.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know when I'm going to get triggered. Hearing somebody else talk about domestic abuse may do it. Seeing
Right.
it happen may do it. Or somebody touching me, just innocently giving me a hug when I'm not expecting it, can do it.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've been able
Well,
to determine you've been able to determine what your triggers are.
Some of them. Now, if I know that there's a lecture that's going to be, talking about rape and domestic violence, I can pre-medicate and be all right.
Mm-hmm.
It's when it catches me off guard that, it knocks me on my ass.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't sleep for about a week, and I'll be bouncing off the walls, and all I can do afterwards is, try to fix the damage that I've done and repair my relationships, because it scares people. It
Mm-hmm.
scares me.
Well, I've often seen, especially on social media, Facebook, where people, will put in their trigger warning.
Mm-hmm.
Does that really help?
I don't know that it does. Reading something doesn't really affect me. Hearing it seems to be what affects me. And I don't know why that is. I've been trying to figure it out for years. I don't know. And I think sometimes trigger warning is used too frequently to where it loses any meaning or help.
Right.
Some people will say one single word will trigger them, and I think it takes more than that. And if you look at the newest DSM-5, there are certain criteria that have to be met to have the diagnosis. And I still meet the criteria, but it says, threats on social media does not count. Or seeing something secondhand doesn't count.
Right.
So a lot of people will claim this triggers me, and they'll be mad for 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what triggered looks like. Triggered looks like, freaking out. You can't control yourself, and you don't sleep, and you're talking really fast, and, it's not something you get over in 30 minutes.
Right.
And I think people that abuse that term do a disservice to people who really have it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I see it used a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I've even gotten to the point now that when I see that, I just avoid it altogether.
Mm-hmm.
I won't even really. If I see something that says trigger warning, I won't even read what the rest of it is. I just ignore it. Because I do think that there's sometimes that it is overly used, and it's not fair to people who actually do have triggers.
Right. And if I'm expecting it, like I said, I can kind of brace myself, or I can take medicine beforehand and be all right. Mm-hmm. It's when it catches me off guard that, gets me. And it might be like a video I'm not expecting, or, someone talking about something I'm not expecting. But if I'm going to a lecture and I expect it, then, I take some Ativan an hour before, and I'm okay.
Right. What about you, Beth?
Well, for me, I agree with you. I do think it's overused.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with Renee that it does diminish for individuals that, and I'm not trying to say this demeaningly, that who honestly do have triggers.
Right.
I know one of the biggest issues I dealt with is that, and I'm going to talk about cutting here, people, so yes, there's your warning, was dealing with what set me off that I would self-injure. And it took 6 years of therapy to understand why I did what I did.
Mm-hmm.
What were my quote triggers. And for a long time we thought, well, It's, when other people started talking about it, that, oh, I'd get the idea in my head, or if I saw something on a movie, oh, it would put the idea. No, the idea for me, in my case, was it's always there. I mean, I'm 51 years old and I still battle it every day.
Right.
And how I deal with that, and knowing that, okay, I have this issue, I have to deal with it. And I'm not saying this is going to work for everybody that has post-traumatic stress disorder, because we are all unique. I have friends who, that served in Vietnam, who, at 59, 60 years old, still have issues with what they witnessed in Vietnam. I know there are a lot of the Iraq War vets that it's especially hitting hard. And for those that don't know what post-traumatic stress disorder, back in Vietnam, back in World War II, Korea, and all that, it was called shell shock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Basically, is they did something, they saw something, they experienced something during the war that caused them to have uh, psychological manifestations, and a lot of times with people that have very, very severe PTSD, they will go into what could best be described as catatonic state. They now describe that as dissociative identity disorder, not otherwise specified. In other words, you basically fade away. You're there physically, but mentally you are off onto another planet.
Hmm.
And what a person does is, when they have this, you know, traumatic experience, their body is still there, but their mind is separated. Now, and yes, it does get into the whole MPD, but I'm not talking about. This is totally different than multiple personality disorder, which is also dissociative identity. I mean, we all do it. Um, the hypnotic effect of your wiper blades when you're driving a car, and you catch yourself like, oh, that's dissociation. Watching a movie on TV, and you, like, your wife's babbling to you for the last 20 minutes and you did not hear a word she said. That's dissociation. We all do it to a certain degree, but when you have a traumatic experience, your mind can take it to, instead of a 1 or a 2, takes it to a 10 or 11. So there's a various range there, and some people have 1 or 2, some are 3 or 4, and some are 10, 11. So it all depends. My biggest thing was learning. Okay, why did I do this?
Hmm.
What were my quote triggers? And you know my triggers were basically, I got mad. My whole diagnoses as far as my PTSD and stuff was, I mean, it wasn't actually even the rape, believe it or not. It was the emotional and physical abuse I experienced growing up.
Hmm.
And basically it was, the only thing I saw from my parents was anger. If I fucked something up, I got punished. Whether it was with the belt or the paddle or the yardstick. We went through a lot of yardsticks when I was younger. Uh, so that's all I saw. Oh, you fucked up, you get punished. So I internalized that.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a perfectionist, and my biggest issue is my boundaries between interpersonal skills suck. I trust people too much, and when those boundaries get crossed and I end up getting hurt, I get pissed at myself and I do stupid things. And so I think for all of it, I mean, is it overused? I think so, but I understand why.
Right.
It's really tough because I do post on my blog a lot of horrendous shit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I focus primarily on religious uh, abuses, whether it be by minister or lay people within the church or in any way attached to a church. Um, primarily with kids being exercised and in the process killed. I deal with the whole witchcraft phase, which is hitting Africa quite hard right now. So yeah, a lot of what I post, I wonder, every time I post something, oh, should I put a trigger warning? Now, sometimes I do. There are certain articles that, like to include an exceedingly amount of pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And I do know for some people that a photograph can be a big trigger. And when the first photograph, when you open the article, you got this.
Mm-hmm.
In front.
And
So,
then bam. Yep.
yeah. So I'm kind of aware of it, but I kind of balance it out. 99% of the time, I do not put a trigger warning on. If I deal with any, I like following case laws and stuff. You know, when I do my post on the blog, I do consciously avoid having the first thing you see a description of the crime.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I can't avoid that, but I think, and part of the reason why I used to post the article directly on my Facebook page and I stopped doing that, and it's turned out to be good. I've had some people say, well, no, because I asked them, I said, do what I post, does that bother you? And they're like, oh no, because all I see is the headline.
Right.
And if they think by the headline, and if you guys watch the headlines, they're usually hyperbolic. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a tough issue. I mean, I won't go social justice warrior on it.
Yeah, I know.
But I do understand where they're coming from. But I think I have to agree with Renee. I think in some cases, not in all, that it's causing more of a problem than itself.
Yeah.
Well, when it's overused, it's trivialized, and so people who really have it, people don't get it.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that comes down to people not understanding or not being educated. And while I'm thinking of it,
Mm-hmm.
I know we've hit a lot of different stuff. I'm going to try to, in the course of the next day or two, put links to various organizations where you can get more information. So if you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me personally, or post on the group page or the show page, and I will see what I can dig up. I was learning how to use the software to broadcast the night shift, so I didn't get to it. But yeah, I have a boatload of resources. As
Yeah.
long as you're not conspiracy nuts who don't trust the government, the information they give, you should be fine.
One of the things that happened to me, we live in an apartment that has sheets for walls, literally.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a young couple that lives next door to us with a child. And it's been a while, but like a year ago, I mean, they would constantly, I mean, it was almost guaranteed every night there was a fight, and you could hear it. And well, it'd gone a year, and I hadn't heard them fighting or anything. Well, I woke up Sunday morning in like a panic because that's all I could hear was them fighting, and I immediately went straight to my childhood and remember covering just Sunday morning, I'm sitting there as a 38-year-old taking a pillow and covering my head up with covering my ears up so I didn't have to hear it, because it was literally taking me back to my childhood. It was taking me back to my relationship with my ex, and all I could think of was, oh no, what's going to happen to me? And this kid is screaming, the baby is screaming at the top of the lungs. And that was my first experience of having a flashback, something that had triggered me, and it literally just it came out of nowhere.
And took you back to that time.
Yeah. And could you imagine a 38-year-old laying in her bed and feeling like she was back at being, 9, 10, 11 years old, and putting this pillow over her head going, no, 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 stop, y'all got to stop.
Mm-hmm. That's what it makes you do.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have to say that was my first ever really, situation that I was actually able to identify with.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you're familiar with Vicki Garrison's story from No Longer Quivering. But her background is a lot like mine, minus all the kids. I didn't, stay pregnant and have kids, but basically her story was my story.
Mm-hmm.
That's to give too long, didn't read explanation for, why I have issues.
Well,
So
I
domestic
think
violence will set me off. Or listening to Nate Phelps talk about what happened to his mom in Westboro, that will set me off if I'm not expecting it.
Yeah. I think about too, and yes, I'm gonna bring up the Duggars. But you know,
Yeah.
the two daughters are coming out with a show. TLC canceled 19 Kids and Counting, but they have now signed on the two daughters to discuss their life after the abuse, I guess. Um,
I don't like that.
yeah, exactly. You
They're
know,
making money off of it, and it's not right.
right, exactly. They're making money off of something that should have never happened, and the parents are still protecting the son.
Hmm.
And at no point have I ever heard the parents apologize to the two daughters.
Actually, they
well,
blame his wife.
yeah,
She wasn't doing what
they're
he
blaming
needed
Hannah. Yeah, she wasn't spreading her legs enough for him.
and meeting his
Uh,
needs.
yeah.
Well,
Well,
the wife wasn't even in the picture when he was abusing kids.
No, but he still has that pattern, and they're still covering for him. In
well,
that lifestyle, the male has domination over
yeah,
the whole household, and so even if he was 5, he would take priority over what the girls had to say.
yeah.
Right.
That's how they
And
were
Gothard
raised.
actually preaches that. I mean, if you read
Hmm.
his literature, and I want to say it was Salon, but I might be wrong. There's numerous articles out that have actually published portions of the ATI uh, curriculum that the kids are taught as far as regards to sexuality in general. I mean, sex as does not exist with Gothard, with the
Right.
Gothard cult.
Well, I keep thinking about the triggers from this show, from these two girls that never, that we know of, received counseling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
What is the show going to do to them?
Well, I mean, they
well,
were taught that it's a spiritual problem and that your body can be violated, but your spirit can't. And to start looking at yourself, what did I do to cause this?
yes.
And I'm sorry, but if you're a 5-year-old, you can't be seductive and cause something.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they might have been in pajamas and he saw them or something and got him excited. And that's just the way that they're taught, and it's nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as sad as it sounds, and this is just my opinion, is that the fact that they don't know any other way other than what they have been taught, and I could be way off base on this, and I probably am, but I don't think they would have issues with post-traumatic stress per se, or with triggers, because they don't know any other way.
Right.
Now, let's say um, they left the cult, and I know Vicky will scream me I'm using that term.
It is a cult.
And yeah, she has a really good explanation why not to say that, but um, if they were to leave the Quiverful movement and get away from mommy and daddy and learn other ways, then it may become an issue.
Hmm. That's what happened to me.
Yeah. Now, being that they're already in their 20s, it's kind of hard to say how they would react. I mean, because, and actually, Vicky probably would be the best one to answer this. Would it be, and well, Renee, maybe you would be able to. I mean, how long after you left did going through what you went through become an issue for you? I mean, was it immediate? Was the stress still? I mean, was it there while before you got out, or did it start after?
After. because while I was still in, I was looking at myself and looking at what I did to cause the problem, and I was told that if I, divorced my husband, that I would go to hell, and I believed it, and that's what scared me was the threat of going to hell and then being disfellowshipped from the church because I did end up leaving him. He would have killed me if I'd stayed. And so it was a choice between staying and letting him kill me or taking my chances with hell. And with me being 19 at the time, I said, surely God can't intend this for me to be living like this. So I decided to take my chances. And I wasn't able to finally get out of religion altogether until about 2003. Okay. And we're talking about 1988 when this was going on, so a long time.
Okay, if we could remove the domestic violence aspect of it, that if you would have stayed in, this is going to sound kind of goofy, if you would have stayed in and everything was hunky-dory with your husband, he wasn't threatening to kill you, do you think you would have PTSD now?
No, I wouldn't have known any better.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if that would be the same for the girls.
It might be. If they realize what happened and can, compare it to, or realize that it was wrong and shouldn't have happened, it might hit them later.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sometimes ignorance is bliss, but I still think they need to know what happened.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, specifically with the Doggers, is that the chances of right now, Anna, who is Josh's hopefully soon to be ex-wife, she has the best chance of getting the hell out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And by the sounds of it, if what stories I have read are accurate, that's what her family's trying to do, is get her the hell out of there.
I hope so, for her sake.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Because I used to watch the show. I stopped watching it when the religious bullshit really got quite disgusting. So, I still every now and then watch an episode on YouTube. Why, I don't know. It's almost as bad as watching Honey Boo Boo. And yes, I used to watch that show too. I think I watched maybe 3 episodes, but she doesn't seem to be as indoctrinated into the whole quiverful idea. So hopefully for her sake.
Well, when it really hit me the first time, and I didn't realize that I was triggered at the time, but that, I probably was, when it hit me was the first time I went grocery shopping by myself. And I had to try to decide between Hunt's ketchup or Heinz, and I had a breakdown and freaked out right in the middle of the store, and it was so humiliating and so embarrassing. But, he had made all my decisions for me, and I was not allowed to think for myself, and I didn't know how to make choices anymore.
Yeah. And that's...
Wow.
And that's just nuts to think about now. I'm like, how did I put up with that, and why did I? But he had me so scared, and I didn't want to go to hell.
Brigid, were you raised in that religion?
Church of Christ, yes, and that's one reason.
That's all you knew since you were a child, then?
Well, I went to church on Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. Then I had youth group Friday and Saturday. Plus, I went to a Church of Christ school from 3rd grade until I graduated. So, yeah, that's, every day. And some of my classmates still think that way.
Ashley, did you go through anything similar to that? With the indoctrination like that?
The part that I went through was through the abuse.
Hi, Bobby.
Bobby's running on about 2 hours of sleep.
Yeah,
and of course everybody knows that our stuff is in our bedroom. But I told him just to come on in here and go to bed. We'd overlook us snoring.
Maybe Deb can edit it out.
Yeah.
I don't hear anything.
The thing that got me was for at least 11 years of being abused, I always thought that my abuse was I was receiving abuse because of something that I had done in my past, you know,
Mm,
and that I had deserved the abuse that I got. And then I eventually thought that it would stop when God had decided that I'd had enough. And then I had realized that God was not going to get me out of it. And believe it or not, even when I came out of the abusive relationship, I still had my faith in God. You know, I was like, okay, well, it was God that gave me the strength to get out of it.
mm-hmm.
And then it, you know, going through Buddhism, you know, and learning about Buddhism, even Buddhism taught me, you know, that it was my karma that put me through all that. It was, you know, there was something wrong with me. There wasn't actually anything wrong with my abuser. So I had problems there too. And then I, you know, met, you know, the community that we're all in now, you know, and that's when it finally hit me that it wasn't my fault. I didn't do anything wrong. And it was, you know, there's nothing wrong with me that caused all that. It was not my karma. It was not I was not paying for any sins that I had might have committed in the past. And, you know, um, so that was the hardest thing for me to wrap my mind around. Now it's just like what I just, you know, just like the story that I had, you know, just told y'all about the young couple fighting next door, you know, because the arguing and fighting and abusiveness has started when I was at 9 years old. I mean, I had a stepfather who put my head through a concrete wall.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So, I mean, and he was a heroin addict. You know, he used to it was my duty to, you know, pee in the measuring cup that sat on the toilet, you know, once a week for him to go have his drug test done to get his methadone, you know.
Oh.
So yeah, I mean, I went through a lot of that, and that right now, I mean, there are some things that happen that makes me realize that you're not quite over it yet, darling, but you have come a long ways.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, have I gone out and sought spoke with a therapist or a counselor or anything? No, I have not. I have actually spoken to a lot of people within this community that has helped me get through this. um you know, telling my story on the show, on this show, has helped me, you know, just to be able to say it has helped me. You know, but I still have a long way to go. I mean, there's apparently still triggers there that I didn't know were there. That or
Mm-hmm.
there's still certain situations that could happen that can cause me to freak out, and I didn't know that they were still there. As early as just finding out this past weekend. I kind of and I think that's a lot of the reason why I'm going to and expressing this to my doctors now, because used to I wouldn't say anything to my doctors. That's just something that you don't discuss
It's
because
humiliating.
yeah, it is. But now I've gained the courage to actually go in there and say, hey, look, I have this problem and I need help with it. And I'm actually getting help for it. 5 years.
That's huge. Well, I didn't even get help. I couldn't tell my story till 3 years ago, and I'm 48 years old.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's the biggest thing though is you got to the point where you realized you needed help, you went and got the help, and now that you're getting more comfortable with that help, you're becoming more vocal and saying this is what I need help with.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing that not just those of us that have a mental illness have to learn, but those that support.
Mhm.
I mean, there I know very early on, um, and I will admit when my bipolar destroyed my relationship with my ex and my
mm-hmm.
one ex. We were together 7.5 years, but my bipolar pretty much destroyed that. And nothing I can do to change it. Thankfully, she's been in a relationship since I broke up with her, and she's happy and yada yada yada.
Yeah.
But in her credit, she did try to learn what to do to help me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, there's not just a learning curve for us. There's a learning curve for the parent, the child, anybody that's close to you, is how how to help and how to support. Telling somebody you need help is not enough.
Right.
Putting them physically putting them in a car and driving them to get help is good.
Right.
That's sometimes needed, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually a friend of mine from Toronto who threatened to drive down and take me to the hospital if I didn't go.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I think I went through that 3 months ago with Dave and Deb when I had my stroke. I thought I just had the flu.
Right.
It was like Dave's like, no, it sounds like you've had a stroke. Get your ass to the house. It took him 3 hours to convince me to finally go.
I remember that.
Because I didn't want to have to spend the money on a fucking ambulance. Because, at the time I didn't have insurance and I had nobody to take me. And the first thing that popped into my brain was, I don't have the money to pay for it.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think it's made me realize that, fuck money. What are they going to do? Put me in jail? At least I have 3 squares and a roof over my head. And I don't have to worry about coming out gay because I'm already gay. So, no problem there.
Well, yeah, it's funny because Bobby and I, would joke all the time about how I wouldn't marry him because I love him too much. One of the main reasons why I actually had refused to get married is because just about everybody I know has gotten married and gotten divorced. And, any type of relationship that I was in involved domestic violence. And, I used to always think, why in the hell do I want to get married and get put in a position to where I'm going to be abused and not be able to get out of it?
Mm-hmm.
And now I have been able to come to the realization that that man in there loves me more than his own life. And he would never lay a hand on me. And even if he did, he knew I'd whip his ass. So, but, and a lot of me not wanting to get married has to do with my past. And I finally had to break down and say, okay, the past is in the past. It's I can't let my past keep holding me in the past.
Yeah, I mean, you want to learn from the past, but you don't, like you said, you don't want it to hold you back.
No.
And that's a huge step. I mean, be proud of yourself. That's huge.
Oh, I am very proud. You know what? I have never been so excited about planning a wedding. Okay.
I'm excited for you.
I'm excited for you for getting married, but the planning the wedding bullshit you can keep.
Yeah.
If you want a caterer, I'll come down and cater your wedding. Did I just say that? Oh, shit.
Yes, you did.
I will come down and cater your wedding. But that's as far as I go as planning.
Just keep the in-laws out of it, trust me.
Well, here's the funny thing, because we have actually put an open invitation out there to all of our listeners.
Mm-hmm.
So we are getting emails for addresses, and our wedding is going to turn into 90% of our chosen family and 10% of our birth family. I
have a feeling it's going to turn into an atheist conference.
It is definitely going to turn into an atheist conference. We have already determined that.
Those are like family reunions. They really are.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're having it at a campground. Bring a tent, bring an RV. So we're just, I want the wedding to be fun, and I want it to be with be surrounded around people that I love and that love me, and Bobby, and I got to remember that he's going to be there too. Um,
Poor Bobby.
but and I want it to be, I want to be surrounded around people that have helped me grow into who I am today.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about it. I mean, yes, is it going to turn where it's going to be the first probably atheist conference in Southeast Georgia? Um, so we're just going to see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that
But
sounds fun. I'm so happy
I
for
am
you
happy
both.
for yes.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
exactly. So
So
one quick question, one word answer, because we're getting down to the last 10. Religion, mental illness or no?
I'm going to say no, but it can make any existing mental illness worse. Because one thing that I have noticed is a lot of people that are diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenic seem to think that they're Jesus Christ or God or something like that. And I find that interesting.
Ashley?
I have to agree with Brigid there. I think that religion does make mental illness worse, because of the fact that when somebody, has a mental illness, as such as in, bipolar or PTSD, or, there's so many other ones out there. The first instinct is for a religious person is to go, well, let me take them to the preacher and let's pray about it. It doesn't help him. It makes it worse.
Yeah, it
I'm
reinforces it.
still kind of 50-50 on it, but I'm leaning a little bit more towards the no, it's not. But I'm still working through that. And just as you cannot pray the gay away,
Yeah.
you cannot pray mental illness away.
Yeah, I think people are using religion as an anecdote
Yeah.
for mental illness.
Yeah. So, Bridget, where the hell can we find you?
I have a blog at brigid.fitch2112 at wordpress.com. You can find me on Facebook at Brigid Fitch. And you can find me on Holy Crap the Vlogcast on Saturday evening, Sunday morning from 11 p.m. Central until 2 a.m. Central. And that's all the stuff I have to plug.
Yeah, which is 12:05 to 2:05 for those of us on the East Coast, because I always screw that up.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to reach out to me, a kindred spirit, whatever, that's fine. I have two shoulders. I can use them, and I can, listen. And if you need support, I'm willing to help provide that.
And Miss Ashley, where can we find you and Mr. Bobby C?
You can find both of us at noreligionrequired@gmail.com. That's our email address. If you want to reach out to us, we can, offer advice. We can listen. We have 4 ears, so we have enough ears to go around. We can also be found on Spreaker every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we do a live broadcast, and you can come join us in the chat room, where it's always been pretty hopping here lately. And you can find me on Twitter at Miss_Ashley_NRR, and you can also find our page at No Religion Required fan page and Miss Ashley of NRR.
And for those of you that are interested in
Starting to sound like
Deb,
Deb.
just turn on your fucking computer. She's probably there.
Yeah.
Plug all the things.
Yeah, I think you're a close second to her, though, there, Ashley. But seriously, Deb is quite the activist online. She's besides here, she's also on Holy Crap on Saturday, Sunday, and she has Secular Savior. She has
The Atheist Apocalypse.
Yes, Atheist Apocalypse, and I
This show.
just yeah, she has this show, and she's on Twitter and she's on Facebook. So if you're looking for Deb, it's Deb McTaggart, and she responds to her friends' requests. It might take a while, but yeah, turn on your computer, you'll find her. So And for myself, it's easiest way is Twitter 9998 or Dune 9998. That connects to both Facebook and it also connects to my blog. And the blog's Havoc and Chaos, and it's on blogger.com. So you can type that in. And then Facebook is Beth A. Hambridge, and I like to talk if you haven't figured that out. So
I want to plug a book real quick. It's not mine. It is called The Center Cannot Hold, My Journey Through Madness by Ellen Sachs.
Oh, yes, yes.
Awesome book. I love it.
There's a lot of books. I have a list, and I will post it somewhere. Probably in the group and on our page. It has, and it's not just bipolar, but it is primarily bipolar and also depression.
And I have Bipolar for Dummies. I do.
I remember the original one that came out, but yeah. But the one book I do really strongly recommend is Unquiet Mind.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on my 5th copy.
Wow.
Because I keep giving it away.
That's awesome.
I'm like, I really gotta stop doing that because it's, it's a $24 book and money does not grow on trees, as I have discovered. So, but yeah. So now I'm going to attempt to play our friend Dave Foda's Humanist Creed. So give me 1 second while I figure out how to do this.
Yeah, let's give a shout out to Foda real quick. Hey, Foda.
Hey, Foda.
Hi, Dave. Okay, let's see. We gotta go. A minute. Bear with me, people. This is all new for me. Okay, screen share. Come on. There you go. No. Can you all tell this is the first time? There we go.
I know the truth and power of reason and of rational thinking, and I will use them to my advantage. I know the truth and power of educating myself and of expanding my intellectual boundaries, and I will educate myself. I know the truth and power of vanquishing ignorance, and I will do so whenever the opportunity presents itself. I know the truth and power of morality without supervision, and of true and accurate righteousness. I know the truth and power of obliterating tyranny, be it intellectual, emotional, or philosophical, and will work toward that goal whenever and however possible. I know the truth and power of human ingenuity. I know the truth and power of human compassion, and I will be mindful of the welfare of others. I know the truth and power of equality and fairness for all living things. I know the truth and power of the importance of our families, our friends, and our fellow men and women. I know the truth and power of human stewardship of our lands, our waters, and our skies, and I will try to act to preserve our environment. I know the truth and power of the sciences of mathematics, of physics, and of chemistry, and of the important role of these disciplines in understanding the workings of this cosmos. I know the truth and power of the rejection of all notions or beliefs that reside in the supernatural or the superstitious, and of those notions or beliefs that we are not supposed to be able to explain. And I know that these rejections are necessary for humankind's survival. I am a human being with a free mind, liberated from irrational influence and from unreasonable dogma.